Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Star Wars Minute. It's your daily podcast in which we analyze, we scrutinize, and we celebrate Star Wars Episode 9, The Final Order, 1 minute at a time. I'm Alex Robinson from alexrobinson.fun.
I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.com.
And I'm Chrysanthe Tan. I have music online in all the normal places, and I have a podcast called Star Wars Music Minute, and I will be going through The Rise of Skywalker at the same time as this show. But I might start a few weeks late and then double up on episodes to catch up because I still want to finish Empire Strikes Back season, so there might be a tiny bit of a crossover. But anyway, the point is, if it hasn't already started right now, there will be Star Wars Music Minute episodes pretty soon about these very minutes.
Yes. No matter what, there are Star Wars Music Minute episodes. It's just whether or not they're about what we're talking about now.
Yes.
Time may tell.
I'm appealing to the crowd of people who maybe is behind on podcasts and are like, oh, I'm starting the season late. So you can start the season late with me, and then we'll both catch up together.
That's why we try to, we
Friendship
extend our hiatus every once in a while.
I'm sorry.
Like, let's give people a chance to catch up.
To all the okay, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about minute 19 of The Rise of Skywalker, and minute 19 starts off with Rey seeing the jungle for the trees, and it ends a minute later with Leia and Rey hugging it out.
Yeah, it took me, I won't say a minute, because that's, that's a period of time that we deal with in literal segments here, but it took me a few watches to kind of parse what was going on. It just seemed odd that Rey was just kind of staring off into the jungle. They're like, all right, ready to go? And she was just kind of like staring off into space. Well, not space. They're going into space, and she was just staring off into the jungle instead. And then I just kind of put together that, oh, okay. Partially in reading the novelization, she says like, all right, she's basically trying to figure out how to say goodbye to Leia, how to part with Leia, because she had basically said like, hey, like I'm going whether you like it or not, a minute ago. And now she's like, well, now this is awkward. Do I go back and be like, hey, so, hope to see you soon? Like,
Hope.
She's, struggling to, not only does she, she's still got internal conflict over like, am I doing the right thing and going on the mission versus finishing my training? And also like, I want to say goodbye to Leia because she's important to me, but I hope she's not still angry about me going off and not finishing my training thing.
So that's why she's staring off into the woods?
Yes. The woods represent her training.
Okay.
Because that's where she did her training.
Ah, okay. But then also doesn't he say what's wrong? And she says nothing. Isn't there like a big scene where she says nothing, like a big moment?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the significance of that? Is that?
There's not like a concrete thing that's wrong. She's just like reflecting on lots of stuff. Sort of like maybe like I need a moment. I'm fine. Just lots of feelings. I need to say goodbye to this place. Yeah.
And that's classic, Jedi. Isn't that a classic Jedi thing? It's like, hey, what's going on? Like nothing. Like they're very kind of guarded with, like. Luke, you switch off your targeting computer. What's wrong? Nothing. Like anytime you ask a Jedi, what's wrong? Nothing. When Luke just told Leia that hey, we're, by the way, I think we're twins and Darth Vader's our father. Right. And then Han comes out. He's like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, oh, nothing.
I don't think
like,
this is only
she doesn't
a Jedi
say nothing
thing.
there. She just runs
away. She
away.
doesn't. Yeah, but she's like, I can't tell you. I think something like that, right? But
I don't think
later
it's just
on,
a Jedi
when Han
thing.
asks, she says, "Oh, ask me again later," or somebody says that, right?
Right. But she does say nothing. Somebody else says nothing when asked about something. Right. So it's classic Jedi deflection.
Right. So
again, I don't think it's just Jedi, but I think like Rey definitely has a theme. Definitely a theme with Rey in this film, where she is not letting her friends in on the whole story. She does kind of blurt things out to Finn later, but there is a lot of like Finn wanting to know what's going on and Rey being like kind of dismissive or not really wanting to share or not ready to share yet. It also goes the other way around where he kind of takes a while to say whatever he wanted to say to her. But yeah, there's just missed connections all around. I guess what's going on is probably everyone probably feels like, oh, this is probably not the right time
Right.
to have a heart-to-heart.
Right. We've only got 16
16
hours or
hours.
whatever to save the galaxy.
Yeah.
All those
Yeah.
things that I wanted to say. Well, then Finn gets to crumple up his things I wanted to say to Rose and toss out. He's like, oh, we're all probably going to die anyway, so I don't have to worry about saying those.
So the thing that's weird, something that I find heartwarming but strange about this minute is
So they bring
3PO.
C-3PO. Wow. I was just kidding, but that's awesome.
Is 3PO is like, why is he being so weird about it? In the event that I do not return, I want you to know that you have been a real friend, R2. My best one, in fact. And then R2 is seemingly not sarcastic in return. R2 has happy squeals, and he kind of bobs around a little bit. It's very cute. It's a very touching moment. It's very like, why are they being so sincere here? Does 3PO know something really bad is going to happen? Or is it just like in their old age, they are just like, let's not squabble as much? Or just, maybe they, knowing that Palpatine, I don't know, maybe it's bringing back lots of old memories. Well, depending on how much of their memories they have, 3PO in particular. But yeah, it strikes me as a perhaps uncharacteristically sincere moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I not too long ago, I watched Star Wars with my kids and my family. And it, more so than before, now that I'm kind of like, I feel like I have to put disclaimers around bad behavior sometimes in movies. But that guy's acting like a real jerk, isn't he? Like, somebody's doing stuff that's bad in a movie. But C-3PO is very rude to R2-D2 throughout most of Star Wars. And it's like, he's just like off the handle kind of a jerk. And so it is.
R2 is rude to him too.
Yeah, they're both rude to each other.
We don't know that.
He calls him a mindless philosopher.
Yeah. Well,
he laughs when C-3PO is stuck and he's on fire in the wires. R2 snickers. He gives as good as he gets.
All right. Well, it is again. I'll chalk this up. Then it's they all are very aware that like, oh, okay, well, we might all be dying here.
I think it's funny also that R2 has been in a coma for 20 years, and yet C-3PO has made no friends in the space of that time.
He didn't say that.
I mean, he hasn't made any better friends,
Yeah.
but he's made friends probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought it would have been funny
He takes a last look at all of his friends later on.
And those are his friends.
Well,
they treat him worse than R2 ever treated.
According to him, which is why R2 is his best friend.
Yeah.
I think it would have been funny if they, when he says, in fact, you're my best friend, if they cut to a sad PZ4CO going, "Aw."
Right, yeah.
Because she thought she was C-3PO's best friend. But sadly, no.
This sort of mirrors later on in the film when he's to Babu Frick is like one of my oldest friends.
Yeah.
He's giving a lot of funny. A lot of friend titles are being given out. He's
working on
here.
friendship. Friendship is a thing for him.
He just downloaded the new software update, which has friendship perks. Where it increases your friendship ability.
No one told me life was going to be this way.
No, I was gonna say, no, never mind. No, I'll just say it. There's like I'm in a Star Wars RPG group, and one of the characters is a droid, but he's a player character. So, but yeah, you can definitely like upgrade your charm and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's your character?
My character is a Claudite archaeologist.
A what archaeologist?
Claudite, like changeling.
Oh, okay. That's
right.
what Zam Wezel is.
Right.
Yeah.
Not what Claude is. I got excited for half a second.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were. One of those guys.
Okay. And everyone in the group is a Star Wars Minute listener as well.
Oh.
So yeah, shout out to Ben, Justin, Alex, and John. Do you play role-playing games, you two?
I have.
This is my first one. I never had done this until like last year.
Right.
I did it when I was younger. I am very interested in doing it as an adult, but it seems impossible to get people to like once you're an adult, you have or I don't know. I feel like if people have too many commitments and you can only do it once every 6 weeks or something, and then it kind of like, what's the point?
Right.
Mhm.
Similar boat. Although I haven't made as strong of an effort to. My wife plays, not as regularly anymore, but plays fairly regular games with some friends of mine and hers,
Interesting.
including some former guests of the show on there. So,
Interesting. A
but,
one shot maybe in your future.
What?
Yeah, so 3PO's being weird. That's all.
C-3PO is. Also, I guess I understand why he's going, because they might want. He's been helping translate the books, and they want him to help translate. They might need to read things and have him, But like, whose is he? Who does he belong to at this point? And why doesn't R2-D2 go? I guess R2-D2, if he still has all that data from the Imperial network, he can probably help with the Star Destroyer action. But
it's probably Leia, maybe?
I think he belongs to Leia.
Who does? Both of them?
C-3PO.
C-3PO.
Both of them, maybe.
And R2, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, R2 has been... Although, I don't know, R2 was living on the Falcon last time we saw him, so it's weird that he's...
But BB-8 is sort of the one that...
Well, he's definitely Poe's, because Poe talks about...
Yeah. Don't you remember when he was all smashed up earlier in the film?
Right, yeah. But yes, not to bring the question of ownership of creatures of droids back into this, but what I just wanted to know under whose authority is C-3PO just kind of like, great, can't wait to get on this project with my friends, and they're like, you can't come with us, like
we're not your friends.
Yeah.
I think droid ownership is probably a good topic. It's probably a good thing to consider because, ownership doesn't. First of all, I think I still am on the train of like droids are not. No, I'm not going to get into a sentience conversation once again. But anyway, it's not just about who owns them and like who gets to the droids get to do my bidding. It's like who's also responsible for them, who takes care of them, who gives them their maintenance, who and if no one is looking after the droid, they just become one of the droids who kind of becomes a scrap. But 3PO and R2 are clearly well maintained, and they're old compared to their models or whatever. Like
we don't know. We don't know.
I'm pretty sure we know that BB-8's like an updated, like a better droid, not better, but like a more updated type of model. R2 is like a pretty old astromech, and they're still working really well, pretty much.
But and a lot of things seem. I mean, the cycle of technology. Which law is that? Is that Moore's law? Whatever. Basically the rapid pace of technological advancement is not as evident in the Star Wars universe, Star Wars galaxy. Yeah. So it might not be as abrupt. It's like imagine taking your computer from 30 plus years ago.
I mean, R2 is 60 years old at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
how many of you still have your VCR player? I know that Tony just tweeted last night.
Yeah, Tony Thaxton just got rid of a VCR.
Got rid of it.
I kind of wish I had one at times.
Did I say
there's something?
It's called a VCR. Did I say VCR player? I meant to say VCR.
Yeah, I mean that's not
VHS player.
Yeah, video cassette recorder / player. It makes sense. It's not contradictory.
Okay,
there you go. Your VCRP.
I was going to say it would be interesting to find out if upon her death Leia emancipated her droids. But I can almost see from a certain point of view how 3PO wouldn't want to be. He's like, I like being with these people who take care of me and clean me and give me oil baths and all that stuff. R2 I could see, although he's a very loyal droid. So
I think droids and humans or whatever humanoids, whatever people, I think it's like a symbiotic type of relationship. The people make the droids. If you're L3, then you can figure out how to replace your parts and recreate yourself, I guess. But I don't think droids are to the level of like needing a full-on revolution for themselves. Oh, I'm going to piss some people off. But yeah, it's
Well, I think
don't
it's different if droids choose to stay with human owners as opposed to droids who have restraining bolts put on and
For
are
sure.
forbidden from leaving. So that's
restraining bolts.
He can't.
Well, mistreating them's not right.
Right.
Well, I mean, they
Making
don't
them fight.
They're computers. It's like saying, you know what I mean? If I throw my computer down the stairs, no one's going to get mad at me for hurting a computer. They'll say, "Why are you breaking your own computer?" They won't care if the computer is upset about it.
Yeah, I don't want to say that droids shouldn't have their own revolution because now it all hinges on whether or not they have true like sentience, like they can feel pain and all of that stuff. But as you both talked about plenty during Solo season, Star Wars I don't have a clear sense of what various creators in Star Wars are trying to say with regarding their stance on droids. So I just don't understand what droids are to Star Wars characters and authors. So it's kind of too hard
The
to
weird part is that it not only is there does not seem to be any consistent message, but they keep calling attention to it by like having the Droid Revolution and stuff like that. They keep like
They hint at things, and then
So-
it's like hinting at it makes it so much worse because now we have this in our head and we are alerted to like how messed up other things in the same story blatantly are.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So
another rhyming we
How
have
so?
here.
rhyming
with
Johnson.
his-
Rhyming dialogue or rhyming?
Yeah, dialogue is like when Leia and Rey are having the conversation, and Rey is, or Leia does have a line, and it's, "Tell me when you get back," which could have been a line that they put anywhere, but it does kind of rhyme with later Rey telling Lando, like Lando's like, "Tell Leia I say hi" or whatever, and she's like, "Tell her yourself."
Hmm.
There's kind of this, there are multiple, I don't know, rhymes, I guess, multiple themes. And one of them is, "I'll tell you later." And Rey does it, Finn does it. She's doing it to Lando. Leia is doing it to her, where it's sort of like, we don't want to say goodbye. Unlike 3PO, who was just like, "If I leave, whatever."
Right.
Everyone else is sort of like, "No, there will be later. We're still in this mode of we're still going." Even when Finn thinks he's about to be executed by Hux, he still doesn't even want to tell Poe or whatever. They're all kind of, I don't know, like it's some survival mechanism perhaps, or just, I don't want to tell you now because that kind of makes me feel like I'm acknowledging that this is our last time. No, there's another later.
Right. As long as we have something to look forward to, then
Yeah.
I think it's in a weird way. I think it's isn't the accusation that J.J. Abrams is that he's good at setting stuff up but not good at wrapping them up. So that's a classic J.J. Abrams thing. "Oh, I have something to tell you. You know what? I'll tell you later." Like building up to it. And people are like, "Oh, what's he going to say?" And then he's like, "I don't know what he was going to say. Someone else was going to handle that part of it."
cheese sandwich. That was what he was going to say. And it doesn't make much sense, but as long as we had something to look forward to.
Yeah. I don't like the continued fetishization of Anakin's lightsaber. I don't like that Leia is like all like, "Oh, it's like, wouldn't Leia be horrified by this thing? Isn't it like, oh yeah, this was my father's, this is the gun he used to execute people back when he was worked for the secret police." It's like, why would you be like, "Oh, this is such a precious thing"?
Well, it's not his red lightsaber, or
Right.
it's his. Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but it's still like,
It's because it's a lightsaber.
And it's Luke's more so, but they all see
True.
it more via their connection to Luke.
yeah.
And
I think it's more
lightsaber,
it's
and
more
even
the
they refer
audience's
to it as
connection
Luke's
to it
lightsaber.
than the characters. I think that's what I don't like about it.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with Rey calling herself Skywalker at the end,
I don't know. Well,
where she only interacted with Luke for like a couple of days. Shouldn't she be, "My name is Rey
but
Organa"?
What about Leia?
That's what I mean. It should be,
Leia's
"My
a
name is Rey
Skywalker, too.
Organa." Yeah,
No, but she's a Skywalker.
But Leia's a Skywalker too.
right. But not.
And what about
She's
Marie?
never gone by that name. I'm sure to her, she doesn't think of herself as a Skywalker. Like, her parents are the ones who raised her. That's like saying, "You know what? My adopted parents mean nothing to me. I only go by my biological parents." It seems like a slap in the face to
I don't think Rey sees that
Jimmy
much
Smith.
of a disconnect between Leia and Luke. And the Jedi legacy is sort of the Skywalkers. I don't know. I think it makes sense. And Leia didn't know that Leia reclaimed her Force abilities later in life because she didn't grow up knowing about them, just as Luke didn't. But honestly, if we didn't have this convention of, well, she's Organa solo. I don't think she ever changes it back to just Organa. But anyway.
Well, they call her General Organa, don't they?
Maybe they do. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Last names are kind of confusing, but I don't know. It makes sense. Skywalker is something that Leia and Luke both share, and that's who she sees at the end of the film. That's who she's thinking of. Those are her mentors. And so what do they have in common is that they're Skywalkers. Also, in the novelization, when
and the letter L,
Leia,
they start with the letter L. So you should have been like, I'm Rey L.
L.
And then it could have been a tie into the DCU also.
So, okay. When Leia kind of reaches out to her son later on in the film, she at this point is remembering that Vader turned back to the light at the end. And that is sort of like a realization that took her a while to warm up to, because you're right that like as of Return of the Jedi, she didn't really want to face the fact that Vader was her father, and she just has to go off of Luke's word that he did turn good at the end, just before anyone could see. Only Luke got to see it, and Palpatine. Only Luke got to see it. But everyone, you just have to believe me. Vader actually turned good at the end, believe it or not. Yeah. And so she has to kind of go off of that. So I do understand how it's weird that she's holding like Anakin's lightsaber, but it sounds like, at least according to the novelization, that by this time in her life, she has made peace with Anakin, with the Anakin Vader situation, and perhaps maybe she could even identify with him more and see the hope in that more now that her son has turned to the dark side. And she didn't want to give Vader another chance, but if she kind of writes Vader off, then she kind of writing her son off. So I can see why it wouldn't be such a bad thing for her anymore. Plus, it's old. It's a lightsaber. It's a family heirloom. It's just a piece of history.
And it is the fact that it's a lightsaber. And again, according to not to rely too much on the ancillary materials like novelization and all that. One of the things that Rey has been working on is she helped repair the lightsaber, so it's also partially hers as she's learning to build a lightsaber, which we'll see later. So it's also like, I'm giving you this. It's like the project that we worked on together for her and Leia. And it also represents her ties to Luke. Although now that I am thinking about it, it is weird. Luke only used that to like, what? Like Luke opened it up, looked at it, put it away, used it to kill a Wampa, and then
got his hand cut off.
Then fought Vader for like 20 minutes, got his hand cut off, and that was it. That's the extent of that lightsaber.
He probably did so much training.
Yeah, that's good. So it's a training lightsaber. It's got a lot of training memory in it. But yes, it represents a lot between the two of them, and for Rey's journey, it represents a lot to her.
Plus, those things are not easy to make. It's a very functional thing to have. It's just
right. It is more like, well, you need something. So
I think it would have been
2 violins, and I have had a special relationship with each of my violins. Maybe I outgrew them, so I had to move to another one, or maybe just one of my violins broke, so I had to get a new one. Really bad story. Now I have 2 that kind of serve different purposes. One of them is my main one. It's like part of my body, pretty much. The other one I use out on the road for other specific instances. I think it's possible to have it makes sense to me that Luke would cherish like these 2 different weapons in his life, and that both would be important for different purposes. Like if it were Rey and some other, like if Finn were also training at this time or something, and he had 2 lightsabers, maybe he'd be like, I'll give this one to you and this one to you.
I can understand Luke having an attachment to it. I just don't understand Leia and Rey having an attachment to it.
Luke should have had a little more attachment to it.
Yeah, he literally threw it over. He literally had no attachment to it. He tried to throw it off a cliff. So
that's a thing. Yeah.
But this leads to another question. When Leia gives Rey the lightsaber, and it says, basically it's saying like, all right, go this is very similar to when Luke was like, all right, I got to go rescue my friends. And they're like, eh. Although that time, like when we see the conversation after she leaves, they're like, all right, we still have the number for that other Skywalker. Like,
Right.
But this time when she leaves and Leia tells Rey, never be afraid of who you are. And as she's giving her the lightsaber, is that what is the underlying message in Leia's message to Rey there? Is she saying, like, yeah, this is who you, like, don't be afraid of leaning into your Jedi abilities, because like Leia's saying like, oh, I was kind of like resistant to that, but it saved my life not too long ago, and it's a good thing to keep in touch with? Or is it, don't be afraid of who you are in terms of like, Luke's legacy and the whole Jedi thing? Or does Leia have an inkling? Does she know what, again, I'm not saying I believe it, but does she know what the prevailing wisdom as to Rey's parentage might be? And is she saying, hey, I know this is going to sound funny right now, but don't be afraid of who you are.
Really. Can I ask a question? This is the second time you've expressed skepticism that she is a Palpatine's granddaughter. Can you elaborate on that? Why you're
Well, what? Who do we hear that from?
I don't remember. Who do we hear it from?
Well, I think we hear it from Kylo Ren, basically, who's heard it from Palpatine, who, of course, you would want if he was trying to get the most powerful Jedi on his side for this. He would want to kind of create that confusion, and we know he's deceitful and manipulative, and it makes more sense to think that that's a manipulation than it does for it to be an actual.
The same way Palpatine manipulated Anakin into saying that he could keep people alive and come back from the dead and all that stuff.
Well, that's an actual thing that we know. We know that there was
that
the
part
same way
was
that Vader
fact.
manipulated Luke and said, "I'm your father."
Well, yeah, all these manipulations.
Yeah.
Well, the same way that ObiWan manipulated Luke by not telling him exactly what was going on,
and then saying, "I knew."
And killing the Jawas and the Lars family.
Right.
To push
long
people
history
on his
of
we have
Force
to take,
users being manipulative.
This is like one of those things that, like, I think, I don't know if you still active. I don't know how, to what, if you're recalling a time when you didn't believe it at first, or if you still are not sure, which of course canon materials could tell you what the answer is there. But these movies, this movie doesn't work. Does it not work unless you kind of accept something?
I think you've already hit it. I think you've already summed up the thesis.
What?
No,
this movie doesn't work.
No. I'm trying to think. Like, could you go through this whole movie reading it as if this whole thing has been just a lie? Maybe.
Wait, which whole thing?
Which part of
it? Ray being a
None of
Palpatine.
this happened.
At the end of this movie, it's Luke wakes up and he just got pulled out of the trash compactor from the Dianoga, and he's like, "Well, I had the weirdest dream about my family and all this other stuff."
Okay, so let's make it smaller scale. So, like,
you
all that's true,
you were
but
there.
all of that is true. But Rey turns out is not a Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
We find out in the next show that whole thing was actually not true.
Right. Doesn't affect anything.
Okay.
Other than, I just think it's more interesting. But,
okay.
I don't know.
I believe that she's a Palpatine, not just because of reading Shadow of the Sith, where they very explicitly talk about her parents leaving, like the whole thing with her parents and everything. But I believe it because I want to believe it.
Okay.
And I like interpreting the story as if that is true. Like, it leads to a better read for me. Like, read of the movie, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that she's a Palpatine. I really like it. It's one of my favorite things about the whole movie. It's like, I think the movie has a lot of small things that are awkward and maybe don't work very well or whatever. But I think the big strokes of the movie, I think really resonate with me, and I really like the big strokes of this movie. And this is one of the big strokes that really works for me. I feel like her being a Palpatine is such a more intriguing and like visceral character struggle for someone to work through than simply having no parents or simply being a nobody or being from someone who's not a notable family or her family leaving her for unknown reasons. I think because I feel like previously Rey as a scavenger with no family name or whatever is a victim and is sort of like someone who was lost, someone who doesn't have parents, an orphan, whatever. And that is not to diminish the struggle of that. But the only thing that is worse, like the way to raise the stakes on that is not only you are kind of damaged, you were unlucky in life, your parents left you, whatever, is that now she might be bad, basically. I think it's far harder to reckon with feeling intrinsically tainted. And I think that's when Rey starts to, particularly the moment where the lightning shoots out of her fingers later on, and she starts kind of realizing that she has this darkness that she starts to explore, and that she's like, it's like the grossest thing for Rey that could happen to her is like being related to that, like being like, it moves the struggle from like, oh, this happened to me, poor me, to like, oh my God, maybe I'm bad, and kind of having to deal with who she is with the lens that she is from this like extremely messed up, like couldn't be a worse grandfather to have, like literally in the Star Wars universe, the worst possible option. I would much prefer to just have my struggle be like, I don't know where my parents went, whatever, because at least I don't have to reckon with myself being bad. So I think Rey previously is sort of kind of almost flawless. I don't want to not flawless. Okay, no, please push back.
I mean, I think that's also this is also what makes me wonder how much Leia knows at this point, because along those same lines, that's why she's saying never be afraid of who you are, and I think she means who you really are, which is different than what your background is. And so that, like, is that a message concerning that, or is that just being, or is it more kind of like don't be afraid to like, or is it kind of the opposite, where it's just like, hey, don't be afraid of who you are, because remember you're from, you're a Jedi kind of to be, so like don't shove that aside, just to be an adventure hero. Don't be afraid of being a Jedi, because we're, it's cool.
I read it as don't be afraid of all of that, but also being a Palpatine. I think she's speaking to like a message that Rey's going to find out pretty soon, that she's a Palpatine, and I don't want her to freak out about it. I don't want her to hate herself. I want her to like work with it and know that I still trained her for a reason, and she's not intrinsically messed up just because this is maybe blood-wise who she is. She can conquer that. That doesn't have to direct her entire journey. I think it's like a super positive. I think it's a really empowering message, and more than empowering, it's something that is like an actually probably helpful. It's like it's more helpful than just like be good or something. It's don't be afraid of who you are. It's kind of telegraphing that Rey will become afraid of who she is, which she does. She does become afraid of who she is.
Right.
In fact, her vision that she has in The Last Jedi, her cave vision, the central concern of that vision is like she sees all her, infinity rays, and then she's left alone there. Like she can't get through to anyone. That's her like her scary vision that all Jedi have at some point. And then in this movie, she has with this updated information. Now she knows that she actually does have a family, but it's this family. Does she know at that point yet? I'm not sure, but still, she's starting to feel it. Whatever. She has like a new vision with Dark Rey, and so her new struggle becomes herself, which is what happens to Luke before he finds out that Vader is his father. He sees himself in the helmet.
So, do we think that Leia knows?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say
Alex?
I would say no. I mean, I would think that if I feel like her line about "don't be afraid of who you are" is kind of just a generic 21st century, like, feel good about yourself kind of a thing to say. You know what I mean? Be proud of yourself, be who you are, that kind of a message.
Does Leia say stuff like that though?
Yeah, she's a little too cynical. She would normally be the opposite.
I know, but like. They only had so much dialogue they could work with. They can't give her new things to say. You know what I mean? They have to kind of go through what they had. But anyway, and I also just feel like if she knew if she was a Palpatine, she'd be more like saying like, you know, be careful of the dark side kind of stuff, as opposed to, you know what, lean into that. Lean into you being a Palpatine. Seems like a weird message for Princess Leia to be telling a potential
Well, I don't think she's explicitly only saying that, because she is training Rey to be this other, like, Rey is still her own person. We all know that. Rey does not really embody Palpatine in the films that we see. So it's sort of like, I feel like Leia knows that she doesn't have to tell Rey in that same way that Yoda would tell Luke, beware of the dark side, whatever. Rey kind of, like, if Rey can lean into herself, like, Rey is kind of amazingly, I don't know, positive. I keep saying the word positive, but that's not the right word. It's just, that word's just stuck in my head. Sincere. Rey is so sincere, and she can cut through a lot of darkness and a lot of dark pressure that even people like Luke and certainly Anakin and other Jedi struggle with. Rey has a really fortified, like, spirit. I feel already at this point.
But I mean, she herself is worried about becoming evil.
Yeah,
she's worried
about it.
Yeah, she's
right.
worried.
So the fact that he's saying "don't be afraid to be who you are" could mean, like, you know what, if you're going to do something evil, go ahead and do it. Like, it seems like anyway.
But it's also like, lean into your strengths too. It's also because, like, our strength.
Right, but if your strength is that you're a Palpatine,
but it's not either or. I think it's like, I think Jedi. I think successful Jedi are able to incorporate, like, what they're given and darkness, and kind of mold it into something useful for them that is still has a light, that is still overall light. And I feel like Rey, there is something about her, the raw power that she perhaps has, that is probably from maybe, you know, helped by the fact that she's a Palpatine, that doesn't have to mean.
You mean unlimited power then?
Right. It doesn't have to actually, it still doesn't have to go the same way. She can still, like, I don't know. It's a generic enough statement that there could be numerous readings that is.
Right. It's like a fortune cookie.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is sad that they were limited as to what they could do, again, with Carrie Fisher, because if anyone would understand what it's like to be the offspring of pure evil, it's Princess Leia, because her father was Darth Vader. So she would be able to understand what it's like to be like, oh my gosh, am I really related to this awful, terrible person? So it's, you know, they didn't really get to have any dialogue about
more
it
explicitly.
Yeah, because but they were limited. I didn't know if in the novel maybe they got into it more or anything, but anyway. So anything else for minute number 19?
This is where we get the Force theme, the full Force theme.
Oh, right. The full Force theme.
Yes, this is where she tears up and hugging it out.
Right. Now we're going to move on to the end of this segment, the end of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna look at these as, again, if this were a series, this would be the end of the first episode, maybe.
Oh, okay.
We did that for Solo. I'm gonna look at this here, about 20 minutes. Boom, end credits. We're just about, maybe at the beginning of the next episode is where they're leaving Leia and all that, and they take off.
It's a pretty good ending.
And really, next minute would be the wrap.
Yeah, I guess it's the next minute. So we'll save it for next minute.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Chrysanthe, you told us about Star Wars Music Minute, your podcast that runs alongside this one here. People should go check that out. Pete, how are things going over at ABCDTOS these days? Are you guys, have you wrapped up the Star Trek movies?
It's possible that by the time this airs, we will have released our final episode of the original cast movies, and no, I don't think so. I think we might actually have. It depends. It's possible. Why don't we find out? Go to abcdtos.com and see if we've wrapped talking about all 6 original cast movies and figured out what we're gonna do next. There's possibilities are endless.
Well, not endless.
Or are they? Well.
And while we're plugging podcasts, I want to remind you, of course, that my brother Andy Robinson and I are continuing with Godfather Minute. We are probably now waist deep into The Godfather 2. Probably minute 120 or so by the time this airs. So people should go check that out, Godfather Minute, wherever you get podcasts. And we hope you'll listen to our podcast tomorrow on another Star Wars Minute.
Another Star Wars Minute.